Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge and welcome to my November reading wrap up, which you know what? For those of you who complain that I wrap up my months too early, no, none of you have complained about that in a really long time. I literally waited until it's December 1st when I'm filming this. I usually film it like 3 days early, but there was a certain special book that I wanted to finish, which I'm sure y'all know because I'm sure I put it in the thumbnail. And I was just like, I'm not filming the wrap up until I can put that in. And I finished it last night. So I got all my notes ready last night so that I could dive right into this. And we're going to. But yeah, November was a good month. I had a great time. I did already start some of my December rereads just because I was working on some projects where I needed audiobooks, and so I dived into those. So I'm feeling good about it. And yeah, and we had a new 6-star read to add on right at the end. We squeezed it in right at the end, which I had a feeling. I said this, like, I was saving a spot for Anastasia because I was like, there's no way it's not gonna be a 6-star book. Like something bad had to have happened. Sorry, I realized that I want it a little more centered over here. Anyway, okay, enough of that. But let's dive right in with the stats for this, okay? I can't believe it's November. Like the next one, we're gonna have December wrap up and then end of the year. This is crazy, it's amazing. So I read 47 books this month, which is great. And a lot more pages. Holy crap, did I read some hefty books here. I read 16,440 pages. And so that made for an average of 548 pages per day, which is more than 100 pages more per day than last month. So that's super cool. The format of these books was also really cool. I know, I'm being so strange. I read 23 ebooks, 14 audiobooks. That's the thing that's crazy. Last month, you guys, I only read 7 audiobooks, which is just so weird for me. I had 5 ARCs and I had 11 physical books that I read. These books were within 34 of them were part of series and 13 were standalones. Yeah, that's not, I guess, totally surprising because when I looked back too, I did have the Fan Fiction Readathon and, you know, all of those are standalones. So there's that as well. And then the ratings for my books were, I had 6 6-stars. Now, again, 5 of those were rereads. So they weren't fresh, but it still made the month happy when I get to reread my favorite books. So I'm not sad about it. But anyway, there was 8 5-star books, 5 4.5 stars, 20 4-star books, 6 3.5, 1 3-star, and 1 2-star. So yeah, pretty good there. Pretty good there. These were in the following genres. We had 19 fantasy books. So yeah, wow, I'll tell you what most of those were in just a minute, but 19 of those. There was 9 contemporary, 7 dark, 3 paranormal, 3 erotic, 3 historical, and then 1 sci-fi, 1 dystopian, and 1 that fit in the other category. The most popular tropes that I read were forced proximity, age gap, enemies to lovers, and fated mate, which is kind of cool that fated mate was like that. So before I get into my favorites, well, no, we'll start with my favorites because one of the things I was going to say about that was that the reason I had so many fantasy was the Fan Fiction Readathon, right? As well, okay, I binged the entire Fae Guardian series this month. Like, literally, I listened to all of these on audiobooks, but I do have a beautiful physical book. These books have lovely drawings in them, and I want to get all of them. I have them on my wish list because I can't really justify buying them all right now, but, I mean, if you want to send me one, my wish list is down below. Anyway, I would love that for Christmas. Oh, revenge. Anyway, they're just beautiful. Oh my god, and look at this one of Rush and his wolf friend. So I listened to all 7 of these, and 4 of the 7 I have given 5 stars to, but I picked the first one as the one to talk about here to kind of explain the world. And I think I liked like 1 more than this one, but again, I had so much fun with the whole series. I didn't give any of them less than 4 stars, and most of them were 4.5 and 5. But I think there's only one that I gave 4 stars to. And the audiobooks are excellent. The first 6 audiobooks are actually on AnyPlay, and then the next 2 I did buy them on Audible because I just had to keep going, so I did it. But this is about Rush, who is a Fey Guardian, and he is a wolf shifter who has some enhanced abilities, and he's a protector of Elfine. His job is to protect the realm from the human enemy. And he has actually been cursed, though, because he broke the interspecies like breeding law, and he had a son. And so for that, he was cursed to be invisible and for people to not remember him when they haven't seen him. And our heroine is actually a human who, in her time, there was this great like frost that came through. Like the world was already getting pretty dystopian, and there was this great frost that like came through, and it literally like flash froze everyone, and a lot of people died. But people who had some kind of magic in them, they survived, and they're slowly waking up. So this human wakes up in literally this like swamp, and she gets attacked by some Fey people. I can't remember if it was vampires or who it was attacking her, but someone attacks her. And Rush is just gonna let her die or whatever, but she can see him. And he's like, what the fuck? How can she see me? This is amazing. And he decides to use her because he thinks if he turns in a human who is magical to his like council or whatever, that they will break his curse. And so he kind of tricks her into making a bargain with him. And if you make a bargain with a Fae, like you have to complete it. And he is going to take her with him, but they're fated mates. And more than that, they are well-blessed mates, which means these like mating blue designs show up on their skin and they're meant to be together. And there's not really anything anyone can say about it. So this begins this series because Clark, she actually has some special powers. And like I said, the humans who survive this flash freeze, and it's been 2,000 years, by the way, or longer than, I think it's been 2,000 years. And so the Fae were actually like, the people were like mutated because of what happened to Earth and everything. And now there are Fae courts and all these things. And metal and plastic are a contaminant to that magic. And so that's kind of why humans have been like, all their stuff has been destroyed and they've been like killed off a lot of the times. So this begins a series where Clark actually has visions, and she begins to see things about how they can save their world from what could happen to it again, or something like that. So yeah, I really enjoyed this series. I listened to them while I was making my Christmas presents because I made a lot of Christmas presents for friends, and I just had the best time. Like I had such a blast doing that. And I can't wait for more because now I'm caught up and I have to wait. And the next one doesn't come out until like February, I think. So I'm kind of sad. But that's okay. Also, I read Tempt by Melanie Harlow. This is her newest book in the second generation of Cloverleaf Farms, but it's also like book 9. I honestly don't know if she's planning to write more. I hope she does because there's still more second generation who need to get together. This one, I was so hyped for it. I won't lie. The last couple in the series have just been like so for me. Like I really liked Ignite, but the next 2 like were good, but they didn't have a special magic for me, which Melanie Harlow, like she can be hit or miss, but for the most part, her books make me smile. I just sometimes write the third act conflict, and that's not a Melanie Harlow problem. That's just an everyday problem for me. You know what I mean? You know? I need some water. But anyway, this one was sold to me from the blurb, which this one is about Millie, who is the oldest daughter of Mac and Franny. And she is, I think, 32. She's curvy, and she's a wedding planner for Cloverleaf Farms, but she has dreams of maybe owning a wedding shop one day that caters to curvy brides, because when she goes to these like wedding shows and expos, it's very much towards thin and a certain body type. And so she wants to maybe do something with that someday. But anyway, in the beginning of this, she's at a bar her sister like dares her to put on a pretty dress and go down to the bar and have a drink and have a one night stand. And when she's there, she starts getting hit on by kind of a weirdo. And then this really sexy guy with some silver in his hair, some salt and pepper, he comes over and kind of, steps in with this dude. And then he even surprised her because she didn't have a problem with him stepping in. She was like, this is cool with me. Thank you. He's like, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to step on your toes. You definitely look like you could handle yourself, but it just really bothers me when I see people being jackasses to beautiful ladies. And it turns out his name is Zach, and he's a private security expert, ex-Navy SEAL. I think he was a Navy SEAL, yeah. And he just happens to be at this bar for work, and they flirt back and forth, and they end up going back to his hotel room, and they give each other a night that rocks their world like it is. It's so good. He is big and strong, and he's just obsessed with her. He just thinks she's so gorgeous. And they have this night, and she has his card, like, he leaves his card for her, but she doesn't call, even though they're both thinking about each other. They live on almost opposite ends of the country. He lives in California. She's in, I think, Cloverleaf Farms is in Michigan. I'm so sorry if I'm wrong, but, like, they're very far apart. And nothing's going to happen, but he gave her a night that made her feel good. Then, it turns out, Millie is planning her ex-boyfriend's wedding, which is going to be soon. And this ex-boyfriend, who is a very sweet guy, and Millie's honestly a little bit, like, disappointed because she keeps having these boyfriends that she kind of, like, she doesn't fix them, but she, like, prepares them for marriage almost, and then they leave her and marry someone else. Not like they leave her to marry someone else, but they become more friends than like sexy in love with each other, and then they'll marry their perfect person. So anyway, she's planning this wedding, and it turns out that the man she had a one night stand with is the long lost father to this guy. So who should show up for wedding weekend to reconnect? Well, not reconnect with his son, connect for the first time. I won't say all the story of that, but he didn't know he had a son, is the point. Did not know. And he shows up, and him and Millie are like, oh my God, you were the hottest night of my life. And now we're in a sticky situation. So I loved how this played out. This book actually has them in a long distance relationship for a while. And that's normally something where I'm like, please God, no. But the way Melanie did it, I loved when they were talking to each other. I mean, you should, but the way that they just wanted to tell each other everything, and they're slowly falling for each other. And there are some pretty big obstacles in their way, but for me, the third act conflict of this wasn't one of miscommunication. It was one of, are we letting these things get in our way that shouldn't? And I think that's an important question to ask ourselves at any time. And I loved how this worked out. So it was 5 stars, no doubt. This was hot. It was beautiful. I even teared up a couple of times. And I thought how Melanie Harlow played it out was very well done. And I was not disappointed. Then one of the fanfics that I read this month, I loved so much. And I believe that I got it. Well, I got this one because of the author, actually. I was going to say, normally I get these kind of recs from my friend Ashton, but this time I got to give her a rec, so I was really happy about it. But this one was a Sirius and Hermione, and it was my first Sirius and Hermione. And, oh, this one was so good. But this is the same author who did Be My Baby, which I read, I think, last month. And that one didn't, like, totally work for me because, number one, it wasn't finished, and it doesn't look like the author is going to finish that one. I don't know. It hasn't been a horrible long time, so I shouldn't assume anything. But I saw this one under her name, and I had to read it. So this one was a BDSM romance, and it really gave me feels of contradictions, but in a totally different way. So I'll explain this one. So in this one, Hermione has actually had, like, a series of, like, flings, basically, or, like, booty calls. She's had booty calls with Neville before. She's had booty calls with Draco before, and she's had booty calls with Blaze. Like, she has these men that she will go to. And this book actually kind of starts with Draco kind of ending their arrangement, and not in any bitter way. He wants to get married and have kids, and Hermione hasn't given him any indication that she wants that with him, even though he's actually wanted that with her, but she's kept him at a distance. And he's like, you know what? I can't pine after you forever and continue to be your fuck toy if we're not going to do something. But again, this is done in kind of a sweet way. Like, the Draco in this he's very sweet. He definitely is a friend in this. And I liked it. I liked that. But what happens is Hermione is, so she's feeling a little lost. And Sirius is alive in this one. And they always have like Sunday like dinner at his house or whatever. But anyway, she's heading home, and instead of saying like Harry and Ginny, she's gonna go see them. She says Grimmauld Place, and she shows up in his flue, and he has a woman on her knees wearing a collar, just sitting beside him naked while he's reading a book. And she's like, holy shit, I'm so sorry. I'm here uninvited. And so she poofs out of there. And then the next time that there's dinner at his house, he's like, come a little bit early so we can talk, because I just want to talk through with you what you saw. And she's like, okay. And so they have the talk, and he explains that that was all consensual. And she's like, well, I didn't think that it wasn't, just so you know, I didn't think it was consensual. And he's like, well, good. And he's like, I have friends that sometimes I see them and they need help letting go. And a lot of them are very strong, powerful businesswomen who just want someone to be in control. And I'm happy to do that for them. So very reasonably explains it. And she's kind of like, oh, I can't imagine that. And he's like, are you sure you can't? Because I think you might be able to explain it. And she's like, is it always sexual? And he's like, well, it usually is with the people I've partnered with, but we could start with something totally non-sexual if you want and see if this works for you, if it's something you need. So they end up setting up an appointment where they do this. And the first time, she is wearing her clothes and he helps her go into subspace, basically. And what I loved about this fic, a couple of things. I mean, Sirius was divine in this one, okay? He's basically like a tattooed bad boy with silvering hair in this, and I'm so here for it, right? So we have age gap vibes, best friends, godfather. And like they will be godfather of the new baby that's coming because Ginny and Harry are expecting in this one. And so they already have this like friendship, but she'd never seen this side of him. But I also love that in this, like, subspace is like almost this, it's more intense in this fantasy. Like, it isn't just, you going to this blissed out like space where you're, having your like peaceful moments. Like, it's an actual thing you can get lost in, and you can go there to kind of like lose your worries. And so Sirius is always very like, you can't stay hidden there or I won't put you there ever, because it's not good for your mind to like live in that for too long. And so he's very cautious. So this definitely is one that it has those same vibes of contradictions, where this is a great like intro to BDSM. And in this one, Sirius, he more so likes, he's a very like caring dom. He's a very like patient and sweet, and I love the communication. Like, that's what I love about BDSM. Okay, I always will. I love great communication. So I adored this. It was so sweet, and I wanted to spend more and more time with them. And I loved how in tune Sirius was to her. Whenever something wasn't quite right, he's right on top of it. They never engage in anything when she's not 100% there. Oh, but he just becomes her safe harbor. And I love that. I love that so much. So great. Then I just recently finished Stolen Touches by Neva Altaj. And we continue the pattern of Neva's books ending up on my list. And you know what? I don't care. I don't care. They can show up on every fucking list I ever make, because I adore her. Okay. I adore her, and I love this. Okay. I loved this one. So this one is about Melanie, who is actually the sister of a different like capo, and they're the ones who got banished from New York. So that happened in a previous book where one group pissed off the other and they banished them from New York, and they say none of your family's allowed to be here. Well, Melanie is a nurse, and she gets a residency at a hospital in New York, and so she goes. So she's been living in New York for 9 years under the radar. No one has known. and she's just living her life, and she's living without the opulence of her brother. Like, her brother keeps putting money in her account and she only uses what she makes from her job. She very much wants to distance herself from that life. But the very beginning of this book, like, I think it's the first chapter, we have Salvatore, who is the top Don in New York, and I can't remember what he's doing, but he's like stopped by, oh yeah, he's having a checkup at the hospital, because this hero is actually an amputee, because of a mob incident. He doesn't have his leg like below the knee, I think it is, but we don't know that right away, which is kind of cool, actually. I like that we don't know it right away. But he's at the hospital or the doctor's office for a checkup, and this car light comes in, and this nurse, who will be Melanie, she ends up having to deliver a baby like right there because they can't get the lady up there fast enough. And so she's like, hey, you, give me your coat. And so she wraps this baby in a coat and then is like, thanks, and like leaves. So he finds out everything he can about her immediately, and he discovers who she is, and he's very curious about her, and he starts coming to see her, just, he doesn't even tell her his name, like, but they meet up a couple times, they have an almost date, and then something happens where someone tries to kill him, or someone tries to kill her, not because they know who she is, but because they saw him around her, because he's become obsessed with her. And now he's like, oh, well, I gotta stake my claim. So he calls her brother, says, hey, guess what? Your sister broke the rules. Give her to me, or I'm going to war with you. And so the brother's like, sis, you knew you shouldn't have been there. I'm sorry. I know you don't want anything to do with this life, but you have to marry this man or he's going to go to war with us and he might kill you. And so she doesn't know at this point who this guy is. She just knows she's supposed to marry someone, and they're coming to her house with a priest to like marry her off right now. And she's like, fuck no. And he's like, you don't have a choice. You risked it. You lost. You have to pay the piper now. So who should show up but Jacket Guy with a priest? And she's furious. And she thinks this is all a manipulation. And he's like, hey, you were in my city. I'm sorry you crossed paths with me, but you're mine now. And now this becomes a forced proximity, forced marriage. There are some crazy cats. And there's an obsessed hero who works it, man. He works it to get this girl, because he's not going to force himself on her. He already forced her into a marriage. And I mean, he doesn't feel too bad because he's obsessed with her and he wants her, but he's not going to force himself on this girl. So he's got his work cut out for him, let's say. All right. He's got his work cut out for him. So yes, I just really enjoyed this book. Again, like, I love, like, when we get to see him be casual, and like the first time she sees him like without his prosthetic, using crutches, she's like, wow, didn't expect that, didn't know that. And I just love it. I love it so much. And Neva's books just continue to get to me. Nothing has ever topped Broken Whispers yet, but this one was still 5 stars. Easy peasy. Absolutely. Totally was. Okay. And finally, what everyone's waiting for. I finished Anastasia yesterday, and it, of course, is a 6-star book. I'm not going into any details here. I did a reaction vlog, which I don't know which order I'm putting these videos up in. I'll probably have this one up first, but if you're a channel member, you'll be able to watch that vlog right now. That's available. It'll go up shortly. I was going to put it up the day before or the day of release, but my videos don't do that well on Monday, Tuesday, so I'm probably going to put it up on a Saturday because I really want people to watch this video and decide to read Anastasia. But this is Sophie Lark's fantasy debut. This is a fantasy romance. It is a historical fantasy fiction. We're going to say that. This is not a retelling of the Fox Searchlight film, or the not Fox Searchlight, but 20th Century Fox film. But what it does have is that magical quality. And there are so many fun nods and like throwbacks to the film that it feels amazing. The story, not the same. What is mostly the same is the history, plus magic and a happily ever after. So it only follows history to a certain point, but Sophie did her fucking research, okay? We have Rasputin, who is our mystical man who seems to have the healing powers that we don't understand. We don't know how he's able to help the prince and draw everyone in. We have Anastasia, who's this sweet young princess. And then we have Damien, who is the son of a Cossack, who becomes basically a ward of the Grand Duke, who's the Tsar's brother. And he grows up within enemy territory. And he is being used to kind of control his father, but also being raised to serve the Tsar. And him and Anastasia meet when they're very young, and they have this connection that they can't explain. And we see them over the years as they go from enemies to friends to lovers. Meanwhile, tragedy is happening in Russia, and scary things are happening, and it's a whole wild ride. There is beautiful photos from Lena Erickson, and there is a playlist that you definitely should listen to when it says you should, and you should just get totally swept away. And this comes out on December 6th, and it's a fucking 6-star book, and if it isn't on everybody's favorites list, I don't know what they're doing. But the spice level of this book is a 1.5, maybe a 2. It maybe is a 2. But like, I didn't care one whit. Did not care. This book was fantastic, and the romance is so beautiful, whether or not they're getting naked all the time. It's fucking beautiful, and only Sophie can rip my guts out like that sometimes. I mean, it's fantastic. So yeah, there we go. That's it. If you want more rambles, go watch the vlog. It is non-spoilers though, but I definitely talk more about my feelings in that. So thank you so much for watching this. It means so much to me. Make sure you hit the thumbs up on this video. Make sure you're subscribed. I put up new videos 3 to 4 times a week. This is my full-time job, so if you would like to support what I do here and get more amazing content and behind-the-scenes stuff, check out the ways you can support me down below. Thanks so much for watching.